Why and how they weaponize stories, we'll talk about that. We have good news tonight from elections in Texas. We'll talk to Ryan Girdusky. Chip Roy joins us. He's got some good legislation coming. All that and more coming up tonight on I'm Right. The narrative. The narrative is all that matters. Why is that? What is that about us? Because it's true. Like, if you were going home from work right now, and let's say we knew each other, and we're talking on the phone, and I told you, hey, just want to give you a heads up. There is a serial killer hiding somewhere in your home. Well, that would affect things, wouldn't it? When you got home, if you didn't call the cops first, you wouldn't be doing very well for quite a while. Why? Well, is he under the bed? Is he in the closet? Where's the serial killer? Is he hiding out back? I don't know. I can't see him. Is he still here? I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. I have put in your head a narrative. I've put something in your mind that you now believe to be true, and now it affects how you view everything. Are you going to sit down and eat dinner? You're going to allow the fam to come home? You'll be calling the wife saying, no, don't come home. There's a killer here somewhere. The narrative. You get to somebody first before anyone else, and you form a truth in their mind, a baseline of truth. It is the most powerful thing. And there's something that happens all the time in this nation. It drives me up the wall, but it happens time and time and time again. The communists will form a narrative in the minds of half of this nation. The right will either allow them to do it or help them do it. And then once the false, because it's always false, it's always a lie. Once the false narrative has been set, eventually you'll get GOP pundits and politicians coming around to I guess that's not true. The facts don't say. It's too late. It's too late. If you give me the first 48 hours to make a narrative in people's minds, I'll give you the next 48 years. I've already won. That's when it matters. And let's be clear about why first, before we get into what they're doing recently. Let's be clear about why they're able to do this. They do have a big, big advantage that you don't have and will never have. I don't have and will never have. I've used this example before, but it's a good example. If you were walking behind an old woman on the sidewalk, I think I used this last week, and she had a purse and she fell and she spilled her purse, you would immediately see an old woman that fell. You would feel bad. You would run up to her and help her up. Probably pick up her purse stuff for her, put it back in, see if she needs see if she needs care. Why? Because you saw a woman who fell and your heart went out to her. But communists don't think that way. Communists are anti-humans. They would see that woman who fell and the purse that fell and all the stuff that came out, but the communists would really only see the wallet that's sitting right there on the ground. Walk over, grab it, and walk away. Because there's no humanity left inside of them, no care, no genuine care for other people. It allowed the communists to find an opportunity in something that you would never even dream to find an opportunity in. It's not an opportunity, it's a hurt old woman. No, for you it's a hurt old woman. For the communists, it's an opportunity. Let's form our own narratives, appropriate narratives, and not help them form theirs like we do every single time. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. And look, this is going to take guts. Forming narratives, fighting against narratives takes guts because they're powerful. Everyone's saying it. They must all be right? We got to be strong enough. All right. We got a big show for you tonight. Ryan Girdusky. We got Chip Roy. We have a wonderful zoo video at the end. If you're an animal lover, you're going to want to stick around for that. Before we get to any of those things, let's understand when you carry concealed, you need to do extra things to protect yourself. I'm talking about legal things. And here's what people who carry concealed, like me, here's what we usually do. And I've done this. We get the insurance. What is that insurance? Well, if something happens, we're going to cover your legal protection. And you've probably gotten it. I've gotten it. Well, here's what you may not know. I didn't know it. They can drop you. Your insurance company, if they determine it's not self-defense, they can not only drop you, they'll make you reimburse them for it. You think you have legal coverage. You better hope that insurance guy's on your side. That's why I like Attorneys for Freedom. Attorneys for Freedom is not this insurance stuff that can drop you. It's real attorneys, real legal protection, on retainer, 24/7, like that. That's protection that can't drop you and won't. Go to attorneysforfreedom.com/Jesse. That gives you 25 bucks off. Go sign up. Protect yourself. attorneysforfreedom.com/Jesse. We'll be back.
The video shows 3 strap hangers subduing the 30-year-old man after witness Juan Alberto Vasquez says he got on the northbound F train and began acting aggressively, threatening riders. Law enforcement sources with knowledge of the case confirm his account, saying according to a witness, the man began shouting, quote, "I want food. I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm ready to go back to jail, and I'll hurt anyone on this train."
Joining me now, my buddy Ryan Girdusky. He is the founder of the great 1776 Project PAC. Ryan, it very much frustrates me how good they are at setting the narrative, how much they understand. About 48 hours is what you've got to set the appropriate narrative, and how pathetic we are. It's awful. I've watched us fail at this time and time again. Why do we fail?
I think because we are not willing to talk the truth about crime and race in a lot of ways in this country. I think when you saw, for example, a couple months ago back in St. Louis or Kansas City, one of the two, a black man kill someone execution style, a white homeless person, putting a gun to their head and killing them on the sidewalk while they were doing nothing. It was a video that went viral nationwide. I don't know why the Attorney General of the state was not making a bigger deal of it. We've come accustomed and grown accustomed to certain things, and they become acceptable. And so therefore narratives that, racial attacks and race bias attacks are happening on a white to black, happening for white people attacking black people, when the statistics bear out what interracial racial crimes look like. It's not like that at all. I think it was a reporter from Salon, I think, when Elon Musk tweeted racial crime statistics, he said something to the fact of like, "These are disgusting numbers," or some word like that. It's not because they were incorrect, it's because they were offensive to the media narrative that we do not challenge when these situations happen in reverse, to create the narrative that this is a bigger problem than just one, Marine on a subway with a homeless man who is probably a mental illness.
So just see if I understand this right. The left weaponizes race and racism for so long that now the right is so laden with white guilt that we can never, ever have an appropriate conversation at any time about crime. In fact, the left understands this, and they will use every one of these crimes as an excuse to restrict more freedoms. Do I have that about right?
Yeah. And we do not, we have been so beaten down by the idea of being called a racist and being called a racist society and having systemic racism that we are not willing to acknowledge certain facts and certain truths. And it's up to the job of Republican attorney generals and Republican district attorneys to bring these cases to light and to make the media cover them in a way that is uncomfortable for people, but it has to be uncomfortable. If we don't have this uncomfortable conversation, since I was born, I have been told we need to have a conversation on race. We don't ever get a conversation on race. We get lectures on race and crime, and they're always from a dishonest standpoint. You want to have a conversation on race, I'm willing to have that conversation, but it doesn't be as uncomfortable as white liberals especially and black politicians are not letting it happen.
So true. It's a lecture every time. All right, let's move on to something else. Ryan, I'm always trying to figure out where we're going. I know you are as well. Where are we going as a country? Where's this going? Where's that going? And I was thinking about it yesterday. I know this is really dark, but because I don't think there's going to be a limit to the depravity of blue states, as Republicans flee those states, as they vote with their feet and leave, they just get bluer and bluer and bluer. So there's probably no limit to how low they can go. And I was thinking about things like legalized euthanasia for adults and kids. I was thinking about things like gun confiscation, and those things seem crazy, right? They seem out there, but Are they that out there? And I'm not saying any of this stuff's going to happen tomorrow, but what's to stop it? If I told you that was 20 years from now going to be the law in California, would you argue with me?
Well, I think euthanasia may be legal in Massachusetts. I know they brought it to a vote. I don't know who it passed or not. Gun confiscation is much more difficult because of the Heller decision in the Supreme Court. When I was born, the year I was born, 1987, only one state was constitutional carry, and that was Vermont. And most states was a do not issue permit. And now not a single state is non-issue. And 28 states are constitutional carry, 29 states are constitutional carry, including all three states in the Northeast, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. So I have a harder time to believe that than I do. Now, there may be more gun regulations, but I think gun confiscation would be very, very difficult. Euthanasia, I could totally see, because I think the depravity is real. And I think that ultimately, a lot of the conversation around abortion that I hear from people who are pro-choice is not that they want an abortion, it's that they don't want to pay for someone else's baby. And I think that the idea of I don't want to pay for someone else who is going to be a strain on the system. I think that kind of mentality is very toxic, but I could see definitely going somewhere in this country.
Okay, Ryan, where are we going as a country then? It looks like we're very much balkanizing. That's what it looks like. And I don't know that can be reversed. It would be nice if it could be, but that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, it's so funny because in these European countries like Denmark, right? Denmark has a socialist government right now that believes that they should reduce the overall numbers of immigrants in their country, both legal and illegal, because there is a common thought pattern rather, among both the left and the right that this is who we believe we are as Danes. So there are certain things that are untouched, and now they're arguing over taxes or the amount of benefits they give out, things that are acceptable in society. And in Denmark, the right does not want to roll back welfare benefits because they believe in their welfare state. So there's certain merits to what they believe politically is to be Danish. We do not have that in America, unfortunately. There are signs that certain places are coming out with certain ideas, and we're going to have more different styles of government. I think ultimately the two biggest things that we're going to sit there and see when it comes to how we are going to govern both red states and nationally are two biggest things. One, which is state contracting. This is the most powerful force any state has. The ability to weaponize a state contract, like West Virginia, not a rich state, did when it came to ESG. It got a major bank to change an ESG policy by attaching a state contract to ESG platforms. So if states like Texas were to sit there and say, hey, we're not going to do any tech programs with any companies that outsource workers to India or any companies that do CRT in their private organizations. Major states with major economies have a huge ability to change both corporate culture and a lot of local culture as well. And then secondly is going to be our civil rights laws. Our civil rights laws is how a lot of things are being broadcasted and changed. Everything is through a civil rights lawsuit. The change of what civil rights has gone through from the 60s until today, as Christopher Caldwell mentioned in his brilliant book, Age of Entitlement, is really the catalyst of the Second American Constitution. Everything that comes with the guise of civil rights is where all of our fighting, our cultural fighting, has come from. So I think depending on where that goes federally and how the states weaponize state contracting is where we're going to go as a country. I know that sounds like an incredibly complicated answer, but that's kind of what I think.
No, it's complicated. All right, finally, give me some good news, because we had elections in Texas on May 6th on Saturday. I'm ashamed to say it was me and like 4 old people voting in there. There were less than 2,000 people voted in my town. But anyway, what happened? Because my guy lost on Saturday.
Well, I'm not going to ask what town you live in, but so Republicans in general in Texas pretty much rocked it. They won the mayorship in major Democratic towns: Richardson, Beaumont. There was one other one. They took over the school board of Katy, Texas. I know where my PAC 1776 Project PAC was involved. We won every race but one in Tarrant County. We lost in Collin County, but we won big in Tarrant, which is a bigger, more important county. Especially one in Grapevine, Colleyville, where NBC News was doing endless stories about Christian nationalism. We won the majority there. I think it's a 6-1 majority now. So in general, and the Prop A lost in San Antonio, which would have legalized both abortion and pot use, but also more importantly, would have legalized small thefts for thefts under $100 or whatever. And it was voted down by like 80-20. It wasn't even close. So in general, it was a pretty good day in Texas. And if we continue to win school boards, win mayorships, win sheriff races, we got the ability for the Democratic Party to create institutional forces and to create a real grassroots network in the state to deliver a statewide victory, which is their ultimate dream.
I love it. Ryan, appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
All right. We're not done yet. We had Chip Roy coming up next. Before we get to Chip Roy, let's get to this. My buddy was hounding me the other day. He got himself a fancy watch. He's doing real well at work. Got himself a fancy watch. And he said, hey, Jesse, why don't you get a fancy watch? You don't have any fancy watches or anything like that. And I said, it's not my thing. It's not one of those guys. It's not me. It's not who I am. And he said, listen, it's something you hand down to your sons. What are you going to pass down to your sons that you're proud to pass down? And that actually hit me hard. Now, I'm still not going to get a watch, but that's part of the reason I love Oxford Gold, I'll be honest with you. It's not just because Oxford Gold will protect your 401k and IRA by getting gold and silver in there. Oxford Gold will mail gold and silver coins to your front door. God forbid you have to use them one day, and you may, to purchase goods and services. That's a nice thing, but what if you don't? What if you don't ever use them? What a thing to pass down to the next generation. What a cool thing. Maybe my grandsons one day will have my Oxford Gold coins. I think that's freaking awesome. Go get some for your protection or your kids or grandkids. 833-995-GOLD, okay? 833-995-GOLD. We'll be back.
The border is not open. It has not been open, and it will not be open subsequent to May 11th.
That's a lie. Joining me now, the great congressman from Texas, hopefully Senator one day, Chip Roy. All right, Congressman, first of all, Title 42 set to expire this week. What exactly is it? Why should I care?
Yeah, Jesse, thanks. First of all, Mayorkas is lying. He lied to me in front of the House Judiciary Committee last year when I asked him if he had operational control of the border, and I literally quoted the statute requiring him to have operational control of the border. And he said, oh, yeah, we do. Then he was asked over in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he said, well, you know, if you really are trying to be technical about it, I mean, nobody ever has operational control of the border. Look, these guys, they lie like breathing. The fact is, for the average American, Title 42 is something they're going to hear about. All that is a specific provision in our health code, right, in our health laws, giving power to the Secretary of HHS to then be exercised by the Secretary of Homeland Security to say you can turn away when you've got a pandemic. Well, obviously in COVID, Title 42 was used, but that was a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. It was basically, frankly, a hall pass for not actually doing all we need to do to secure the border fully. The Congress in 2018 failed to do the job. The previous administration did what they could with Title 42, but we needed to go further to actually secure the border. So now you've got the Biden administration that's just using asylum laws to say, everybody come in, claim asylum, we'll release you into the United States. And as a result, 72,000 dead Americans from fentanyl last year, thousands of migrants getting sold in the sex trafficking trade, 856 migrants who died in South Texas last year. You saw a group of 7 who got slaughtered and run over by a vehicle on the side of the road in South Texas in Brownsville yesterday. This is unconscionable what we're doing. And now you've got 750,000 people amassing in Mexico ready to come into the United States. So you ask why people should care? They should care because this is an invasion. We're getting overrun. Americans are endangered. Migrants are endangered. Cartels are empowered. China is empowered. And this administration is fiddling while our border burns.
750,000 ready to come over in Mexico. Did I hear you right? 750,000?
That's what we're being told, is that there's as many as 750,000 folks that are amassing and ready to come in towards the United States. And look, if you look at the overall numbers of what we've seen, we know of now pushing 2 million gotaways, okay? They're not the people that we've apprehended. Gotaways. We know that some of the people we've captured are people who are Chinese nationals. We had over 160 something that were affiliated with terrorist countries and organizations, and that's before this recent surge. The administration has been blatantly ignoring the law, ignoring the powers they currently have to actually secure the border. And they haven't been wanting to work with us to do whatever we can in Congress to give them more. Now, I will say, we passed a really good bill through the House Judiciary Committee 2 weeks ago. We're going to take it up on the floor this week. I'm going to run the rule on Wednesday on the floor. I hope we will pass this bill this week. I guarantee you it'll be a party line vote or close to it. We'll send it over to the Senate. And our House Democrat colleagues and Senate Democrat colleagues and the president will all go hide behind saying, oh, this is going to harm us with asylum. And they are completely ignoring the law that we can take care of the very few number of people who have a legitimate fear of persecution, which is what is required for an asylum claim, and then stop this flow instantly so we can reclaim operational control of the border and protect our kids and the migrants who seek to come here.
Can you, it seems to me, I mean, you're in the belly of the beast. It sure seems obvious to me that these people want the border open, that it's not a whoopsie. They didn't screw up and opened up the border. They want the border open. They want the country flooded with illegal immigrants. But you're there, I'm not. That's what it seems like to me. Is that the case?
You have probably two groups of people in my Democratic colleagues. Those who just bury their head in the sand and ignore it and won't accept the reality of what's actually happening. And those who full well know what's happening, and they're totally fine with it because they believe in basically a liberal world order, to quote the deputy press secretary of the White House. They believe in open borders. They don't believe in sovereignty. They don't believe in American exceptionalism or the greatness of this country. They just think everybody should come and go. Doesn't matter what that means in terms of destroying our own sovereignty and national security, but importantly also undermining our countries and friends in our backyard in the Western Hemisphere, while China then is empowered and is exploiting their relationships in the Western Hemisphere and making us weaker. They don't care about any of that because they don't believe in sovereignty. This is what's at stake. We are at war. We are at war right now over the soul of this country, and our friends on the left want to attack everything that made this country great. You wore the uniform. Your buddies that were serving with you, you didn't sign up for this crap. You didn't sign up to undermine our sovereignty. You didn't sign up to make our country weaker. You didn't sign up to say that we don't even know the difference between a man and a woman, or let a dude swim against a girl in a swim meet. That's what they want to do, completely reshape our country. That's what we're up against, and that's why we need to stand up this week. Right now, we need to stand up, pass a bill, and then Republicans need to use the power of the purse to demand this administration actually enforce the law.
Tell me about this civil servants executive bill you and Rick Scott are working on, because I was reading a little bit about this morning. I about stood up and cheered.
Yeah. So it is very difficult, and it was true under the Trump administration, right? He wanted to come in and drain the swamp, did a lot of great things, but ran into a very big bureaucratic buzzsaw. And frankly, we need to be able to go fire more of the bureaucrats. Now, I wish the Trump administration had moved faster under what you call Schedule F to basically say that we're going to say, hey, you guys are political appointees. We're getting rid of you, getting you out of the way because you're not carrying out what I want to carry out for the American people as the elected president. But what Rick Scott and I are doing are saying, hey, we think like every other business in America, we believe that bureaucrats in Washington, bureaucrats in the federal government ought to be fireable. They should be able to be fired if you don't do your job. And if somebody comes in as the secretary or the FBI director or anything else, and they want to represent the president who was duly elected and say, hey, you're not actually enforcing the law. How about Secretary Mayorkas and some bureaucrats working for him, the people under the secretary? Why don't we fire them? How about the EPA bureaucrats that are shutting down businesses? Or how about the ones that made a criminal out of a man out on his ranch out in the United States, I think in Montana, and he was actually put in jail because he had ponds on his ranch? Why don't we fire those bureaucrats? And so Senator Scott and I are saying we ought to have the power to go through and fire bureaucrats just like anybody else can get fired in America, because under current law, they're protected. They're free from any kind of actual accountability. Nobody in America, I think, would agree with that if they know the truth, so we want to expose it.
All right, finally, before we let you go, the debt ceiling. Obviously, this is a showdown here. What's handicap it for us, Chip? What's going to happen here?
Well, we passed, I think, a really good bill. I mean that. I think there was a lot of debate over the speaker's fight in January. we've all been working together. We passed a bill that does increase the debt ceiling $1.5 trillion. Not my favorite thing to do, but for that, we got $1 trillion of upfront cuts and about 4.8 trillion, almost 5 trillion over 10 years. We get rid of the student loan, 550 billion. We reclaim 50 billion of COVID money. We stopped the 80 billion that's set aside to expand the IRS. We passed a regulatory reform package that would actually save money and get Congress back in the game. And then finally, we did something really important. We said that we ought to undo the damage of the so-called Inflation Reduction Act and get rid of these tax credits that are essentially nothing more than funneling money to radical leftists who are making money in corporations to advance an energy policy that will drive your electricity prices up, take your cars off the road, and make your life much more difficult and do very precious little for the environment. And it would cost $1.2 trillion, according to Goldman Sachs. So we undo all of that. And now we'll see what the president does. We put the ball in his court. Credit to Kevin McCarthy. He tells me he's going to go down to the White House on the 9th and say, look, Mr. President, you've got a bill. Senator Mike Lee's got a letter with 43 signatures on it. I think there's 2 or 3 others who are aligned, so like 45 or 6, who are saying, we're not going to pass a clean debt ceiling. You're going to sit at the table and we're going to do what's right. Now the question is, will Republicans show us fine, hold the line, or will they flinch? You know how I'm going to feel about it, but we'll be working hard to try to figure out how to hold the line because, damn it, I didn't go to Washington for second place. I didn't go through cancer for second place. I don't spend weeks on end away from my kids and my wife for second place. So we're going to go up there and fight.
Whip him in line, Chip. I appreciate you. Come back soon.
Thanks, Jesse. God bless y'all.
You too. All right. These people were just picking at the threads of America all the time. All the time. We're going to talk to Bill Jacobson about what they're doing next. Before we get to that, as soon as Chip, I was feeling good there, and then Chip had to throw in that part at the end. We'll see if the GOP can hold the line. And I immediately thought to myself, man, this is Chalk's time. This is the time for Chalk, baby. We need you now, Chalk. We need Chalk sending out male vitality stacks to every GOP senator and House member. We do. Natural herbal supplements. So it's something they can feel good about taking, but 20% increase in your testosterone in 90 days? Female vitality stacks have to get sent out for the ladies because we've got a showdown coming and, well, we all need to be stronger and get ready for the fight, right? CHOQ.com. You go take it for 90 days and then you email me and tell me how good you feel. It's just how you feel. Chalk.com, promo code Jesse, 35% off subscriptions. We'll be back.
We want ethics on the court.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Those were protesters out in front of Justice Roberts and Brett Kavanaugh, the same Brett Kavanaugh who almost got assassinated by these nutballs earlier. Joining me now, Bill Jacobson, Cornell University law professor and founder of the Great Legal Insurrection. Okay, Bill, I'm almost positive it's illegal to do that out in front of a Supreme Court justice's house. I read that somewhere, but you're the lawyer. You tell me.
Well, there is a federal statute which prohibits protesting at a judge's home, not limited to Supreme Court justices, at a judge's home for the purpose of influencing the judge or obstructing justice. So the question would be, legally, are they trying to influence? Well, certainly the protests that took place between the leak of the Dobbs decision and the actual Supreme Court issuing its decision clearly were intended to influence the justices. And I think you could probably say these so-called ethics protests also are. They're trying to influence them to go along with Dick Durbin and the other Democrats who want to impose some sort of external ethics code on the Supreme Court justices. So I think clearly it violates the statute. Now, some people say the statute's unconstitutional and has never been challenged, but it's on the books. And as we know, the FBI and the DOJ love to enforce even petty laws that are on the books when it's politically convenient for them.
Okay, well, what kind of a country do we have then? I don't mean to step away and get too broad with this whole thing, but what kind of country do we have then when, if Democrats are in charge, they can just decide not to enforce laws if Republicans are being harassed? That's Okay, so you don't have a constitution anymore. Well, I don't know what this is, but you don't have a country.
Well, that is a problem. I mean, it's unheard of. I've never heard of until after, when the Dobbs decision leaked, protests at Supreme Court justices' homes. I mean, that was unthinkable. And the White House was reticent to criticize it. Call it illegal. It was a nod and a wink to these protesters and, Democrat politicians as well. So I think it's very, very frightening because what it says is it's essentially mob rule. Whoever controls the streets is going to control everything. And that's obviously not the way it needs to be. So it's an extremely troublesome development that DOJ, which can be extremely aggressive, including prosecuting people for parading on January 6th, will not enforce a statute that is on the books, is the law of the land right now, which says they can't be doing what they're doing. And so I think that's extremely troubling, but it's typical of what's happened with Merrick Garland and with the Biden Department of Justice. Everything seems to be political these days.
Everything's political. All right, well, let's move on then to this. It's very obvious there's been a ramp up in attacks on Supreme Court justices, not just the attempted assassination of Kavanaugh, the smearing of Clarence Thomas, which I know is nothing new, but that's obviously ramped up. It's obvious to me, at least, that they're coming for the court in some way, that they can't stand that there's any kind of a bulwark. Do I have that right?
Yes, well, the U.S. Supreme Court is really the one institution that has not been completely captured by the left. Congress goes back and forth, but certainly the Supreme Court conservative majority is going to be there for a long time. And it is driving them absolutely crazy that they can't control absolutely everything. And so I think it's a three-part game that they're playing. One is simply to diminish the influence of the court and diminish the respect of the court. And therefore, you have calls for people from the progressive movement, but others also to disregard Supreme Court decisions, disregard court decisions. So it's to limit the influence of the court. The second one, I think, is to justify some sort of court packing or change in the nature of the court. But to do that, they're going to have to get a lot more votes than they currently have. So that's probably not going to work out for them. And it polls very poorly, court packing. The third one, which I think is what they're really up to here, is to try to pressure one or two of the justices to resign by making their lives so miserable. So they're protesting outside their homes. There's been an assassination attempt on one of them. They are going after family members now. And so what I think you're seeing is a lashing out, trying to pressure one of the justices to resign, or worse, and they wouldn't say it, but I think that's lurking behind, that maybe next time one of these protests will be effective and will, either injure or kill a Supreme Court justice. And I think that's part of what the game plan here is. Of course, they'd never say that, and that probably isn't the game plan of Dick Durbin, but these crazy activists who are out in front of the House, I think, are up to no good, and I think there should be a lot more protection for these justices than they're getting.
Why is it a big deal that the Dobbs decision leaked and that they've never found the guy?
The guy or the gal, we don't know who it is.
Yeah.
Because that is part of this effort to undermine the court. This undermining of the court is not a new thing. It didn't start with the leak of the Dobbs. The Dobbs leak was, in effect, the symptom of the bigger problem, which is a lack of respect for the court, as long as it's controlled by a conservative majority. So it undermines the court's ability to deliberate, to express views to each other. Initial decisions are not always the final decision. And if justices can't feel free to share their thoughts with other justices, that in and of itself obstructs the normal administration of justice. It also it sets a precedent. It sets a negative precedent that you can do this and get away with it. So what's the next thing that somebody's going to do that they're going to get away with? So once you break a norm, once you say that the things that have always guided us, even if they're not written in law and they're not written in stone, but they've always guided us as normative, normal behavior, no longer apply, then there's a whole slew of things that can happen.
The judges in the Proud Boy, well, really all the January 6 cases in D.C. have done some things that I've found to be absolutely stunning. You've got people out there reading basically what amount to struggle session apologies. It's been unreal watching the court system in Washington, D.C. Has this bothered you at all?
Yeah, I mean, my position, which I've written many times and said many times, is that January 6th riot shouldn't have happened, okay? And there was a part of it that was violent, and the people who, pepper sprayed police in the face or hit them over the head with things should be prosecuted. I don't think that's controversial. But what you're getting is a years-long manhunt for anybody who had any connection. There was recently an elderly woman who brought her even older mother, was in the Capitol for maybe 5 minutes, I think, walked through an open door, being prosecuted. You're getting prosecuted people who committed no violence, committed no wrong that would normally be prosecuted. Normally, parading is not prosecuted. That's not a thing that happens. But for political reasons, anything connected to January 6th, and I think it's very damaging to the country. Again, I don't think many people, certainly I don't object to somebody who hit a policeman over the head or pepper sprayed a policeman or did anything like that being prosecuted as they would be if the crime took place on the street or in the Capitol or anywhere else. But I think it's extremely damaging what the Department of Justice is doing now, which is seeking anybody who had any connection whatsoever, even if they themselves did nothing wrong.
I agree. Bill, I appreciate you. Please come back.
Great. Thank you.
All right. We got lighten the mood next. Before we lighten the mood, let's lighten your allergies. I know. Spring is here. Summer's coming. Everything's just pollen now. So you walk out and it's just one big cloud of yellow dust all over your face, your eyes itch, you're snotting, you're coughing. I get it. I know because I lived my life that way since I was 10 years old. Horrible allergies my whole life. No more. Completely allergy-free. I don't even own allergy medication anymore, which is good because I hate medication. Why? How's that possible? Well, I have Eden Pure thunderstorms. I have 3 of them in my home. I have 3 of them here in the studio. So my air is being constantly cleaned, scrubbed at all times. I don't ever have to replace a filter, but viruses, mold, everything getting killed, cleaned out of my air. My air is clean, therefore my nose is clean. 3 packs. They have 3 packs for sale, $200 off right now. Go enjoy. EdenPureDeals.com, code Jesse is how you get the deal, all right? EdenPureDeals.com, code Jesse. We'll be back. All right, it's time to lighten the mood. You know what lightens my mood? Animals. I've always had this heart for animals, and I love the zoo. I've actually taken my kids to the zoo all over the country. When they were little kids, even too young to appreciate it, I took them to the famous San Diego Zoo. We've been to the great zoo in Nashville, zoo in Houston, we've been to all kinds of zoos. So I love zoo videos. I thought they always make me happy. They make you happy? So we're going to play you some animals here in just a moment. Before we get to animals, let's talk about your animal. Because I picked up my Fred today. He had to go get his nails clipped and stuff. And Fred, my golden doodle, he's not the most emotionally strong dog, so he wasn't doing very well. And the wife wanted me to get him a little treat cookie on the way out, and I did. And you know what? We never used to be able to do that with Fred. Why? Because, surprise, surprise, he also gets an upset stomach whenever you feed him, and he would have digestive problems. But thanks to Rough Greens, Fred now gets probiotics, digestive enzymes, vitamins, minerals, a nutritional supplement, all natural we pour on his food. Fred is happier, healthier, no more digestive problems. You want to see a difference in your dog and have a longer living dog? roughgreens.com/Jesse. Free bag, free Jumpstart trial bag. All right, now, I love animals. You love animals. Let's enjoy these kids having a nice field trip.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so sad. That's so sad. Don't eat it. It's right.
See you tomorrow.